President Bollinger, respected chair and speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it's a true honor for me to join you at the Columbia University 2016 Justice for Free Expression Conference through video, although I have confirmed and planned well ahead to attend the event in person. However, it's unfortunate that I'm deprived by authorities from the right to travel by intentionally delaying the issuance of my passport since January. Where does freedom of expression stand today in Bahrain? Has it improved or worsened since 2011? Before highlighting the current situation, I would like to state that freedom of expression in Bahrain has traditionally been under censorship and restrictions for decades. However, things have slightly improved after the current ruler, King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, has been announced as the King of Bahrain in 2002. However, the government maintained a strict monopoly on broadcast media in the period between 2002 and 2011. Private broadcasting licenses were not granted. Only one of the 6 daily newspapers, Al-Wasat, was and still is considered truly independent of government influence, although it had to practice a high level of self-control and self-censorship in order to avoid closure and prosecution. During the years between 2002 and 2011, human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch reported ongoing violations and restrictions imposed on freedom of expression. In 2011, Bahrainis were influenced by the Arab Spring and by the events in Egypt and Tunisia. Thousands of Bahrainis marched to the streets on the 14th of February 2011 and chose the Pearl Roundabout as a sit-in. The overall human rights situation collapsed when authorities announced the emergency law in March 2011. Tens were killed, thousands were arrested and sacked from their jobs, mosques were demolished, and systematic human rights violations prevailed. According to human rights organizations, the majority of those imprisoned during martial laws were prisoners of conscience. The state of emergency was soon lifted in June 2011 after serious denouncements from the international community and human rights organizations around the world and calls for reforming the human rights situation in Bahrain. Soon after that, in fact in June 2011, the king ordered the establishment of an independent commission of inquiry to investigate the events that took place in February and March. The commission was chaired by Professor Mahmoud Sharif Bassiouni. The report of the Bahrain Independent Commission of Inquiry was submitted to the king on the 23rd of November 2011. The report has revealed that the majority of arrests and charges involved the exercise of freedom of opinion and expression that are guaranteed by the Bahraini Constitution and by the ICCPR. The report has also revealed that a large number of individuals, including myself, were prosecuted before the National safety courts and imprisoned for violating Articles 165, 168 of the Bahraini Penal Code. These laws, according to the report, especially Article 165 of the Criminal Penal Code, that states that a person shall be placed, or a prison sentence shall be passed against any person who incites others to develop hatred or hostility towards the system of government. This law does not meet with international human rights laws and the Constitution of Bahrain in accordance with the report. The report also has revealed the immediate need to reform laws and practices in order to comply with Article 19 of the ICCPR. Furthermore, the report has clearly recommended authorities to review all convictions of persons who have been charged with offenses involving political expression and not consisting of any advocacy of violence or incitement to violence. The report has called to drop outstanding charges against prisoners who have expressed their political opinions through peaceful means. It has also recommended relaxing censorship and media and allowing the opposition greater access to the media, including TV. It has called to undertake appropriate measures, including legislative and non-legislative measures, to prevent the incitement of violence, hatred, sectarianism, and other forms of incitement that could potentially lead to the violation of international human rights. Bahrain had a golden opportunity after the report was presented to adapt human rights and political reforms that could potentially pave the way towards dialogue and reconciliation. Since Professor Bassiouni is one of the reputable speakers at this conference, I would like to express my gratitude for his never-to-be-forgotten, sincere efforts to reveal some of the realities of the human rights situation in Bahrain. And I would like to state, if his recommendations have been implemented, Bahrain would have been miles closer towards reconciliation. Professor Sharif Bassiouni deserves a big thank you from the people of Bahrain. Thank you. Where do we stand today, more than 4 years after the historical the report? Today, in 2015, hundreds of peaceful activists who publicly expressed their views are still being charged under Article 165 of the Bahrain Penal Code with the incitement of hatred against the system of government. Instead of implementing the Bassiouni recommendations and modifying laws that did not comply with Article 19 of the ICCPR, new laws have been imposed to further restrict the right of freedom of expression. In 2013, or is it 2014, there was a new law which amended the penal code and provided for up to 7 years in prison and a fine for insulting the authorities, and national symbols. It is also a crime right now in Bahrain to offend the government, the National Assembly, the army, courts, judges, public institutions, governmental agencies, or to advocate any form of change in the system of government. These provisions are widely instrumented to censor human rights offenders, raising awareness about the current abuses. The arrests, trials, and harassments in 2015 and 2016 demonstrate that the Bahraini authorities are increasingly intolerant of being criticized and are determined to continue repressing the peaceful exercise of the right to freedom of expression. One of the charges brought against Sheikh Salman, the General Secretary of the biggest political party in Bahrain, was offending public institutions, even though offending governmental bodies in international law is not sufficient enough to justify penalties. Furthermore, the tendency has multiplied to use Article 309 of the Bahrain Penal Code that states that punishment for a period of 1 year and a fine shall be imposed upon any person who commits an offense by any method of expression which is regarded as an insult against religious symbols. Blasphemy and defamation laws are being utilized to further restrict freedom of expression. And this is an open door to abuse, especially in countries which witness unfortunate sectarian divides. I was recently charged with defaming religious symbols. Although the charges were baseless, however, the charge is a clear example of the dangers embedded in blasphemy laws in Bahrain. And in political environments where there is unrest, it's very clear that these laws can be used to punish reformists calling for democracy and respect of international human rights. Further restrictions could be imposed in 2016 by a new anti-hate law that might be approved soon. I believe that the new anti-hatred law is a blasphemy law in disguise. The new anti-hatred law could further restrict freedom of expression rather than safeguard the society from the incitement of hatred. We all know blasphemy laws in non-democratic countries are very selective and are applied in a discriminatory manner. They could eventually be instrumented as a punishment tool to deal with outspoken voices. In general, further restrictions and censorship have been imposed on freedom of expression since 2011, and the government has unfortunately failed in implementing the Bahrain Independent Commission inquiry recommendations related to freedom of expression. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.